Good afternoon, everyone. I think we have a good number of participants now, so we will be starting the session. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We hope that you and your families are doing well and are safe. I am Prerna Mehta, Associate Director, Urban Development at WRI-India, and will be moderating today's session. Today, we are meeting to talk about rapidly increasing health hazard, that is air pollution. As per World Air Quality Report 2019 by IQ Air, 21 out of world's 30 most polluted cities are in India. According to a new study led by researchers from Global Observatory on Pollution and Health at Boston College, the Indian Council of Medical Research, and the Public Health Foundation of India, in 2019, air pollution resulted in 1.67 million deaths, the largest pollution-related death toll in any country in the world. This accounted for $36.8 billion US dollar economic losses. When we think of air pollution, the smoggy outdoor haze of metropolitan cities come to mind. The visualization as an outdoor phenomenon is not completely wrong, but is an incomplete picture. Many of us are unaware that the level of indoor air pollution is far worse in Indian households. Research attributes the rising air pollution levels to 6 key activities, namely dust in construction, waste burning, transport, diesel generators, industries, and domestic cooking. The range of their contributions to air pollution levels vary depending upon the concentration of activities. For example, transport can contribute to the range of 30 to 60, whereas domestic cooking can contribute in the range of 30 to 40%. So as a professional and a citizen, the question that comes to one's mind is what can be done to improve air quality in our cities? Let's learn from our eminent experts who will discuss the causes and impacts of air pollution and explain various tools to measure air pollution and air quality while providing sector-wise actions for tackling air pollution. They will discuss case studies and new initiatives for reducing air pollution in our cities. The session will have 3 presentations, followed by a Q&A round and feedback round. I would request all participants to keep yourselves on mute, and if you have questions, kindly post it and experts will take them up at the end. Besides our eminent experts, whom I will introduce shortly and myself, we have Mr. Bhavesh Sharma, Mr. Zahir Sheikh, Ms. Shabna Shamanu from WRI-India team, and Ms. Vaishnavi Shankar, Ms. Ankita Mandal, Ms. Ahona Datta Gupta from NIUA to support us at the back end. With this, I'm going to invite our first speaker, Dr. Ajay Nagpure, Head of Air Pollution Vertical at WRI-India. Dr. Ajay is a well-published expert and has extensive experience in the field of air pollution and related health risks. Dr. Ajay, the session is over to you.
Thank you, Prerna, for a nice introduction and I think important topic which we are going to discuss today. So I prepared some slides which I am going to share with you all, and so let me share my screen. Okay, so today what I'm thinking to talk about is the very fundamental or basic thing about the air pollution, like what is air pollution and how it is affecting the health. I'm just putting my time just to remind me. So yeah, so I would start with, I think most of the time I start with this map, and this is the, I think, quite old map. It's 2014-15 map, and but nothing has been changed over the time. There is a little bit change in China, but in India the situation is almost same. This red dot shows the air quality levels in the cities of India. It's what is the status. So it shows that most of the Indian cities where the monitoring stations are available, that many of the other cities are not having a monitoring stations. So cities where we have a monitoring station, the air quality level is very, very high. I think it's very high. It's more than the WHO guideline and the Central Pollution Control Board uh, standards. So when we talk about the air pollution, we generally, I think most of the time we I think we hear the news, we read the news, and we generally things like I think this one pollutant is very common in discussion these days. The particulate matter. We all talks about the particulate matters, but is it only the particulate matter, or there are some other pollutants which are responsible for the air pollution? So this that this atmosphere, it's kind of a laboratory. It's like there are a lot of chemical reaction ongoing in the, I think every times, so similarly, so whatever pollutants coming into the atmosphere are affecting the our health. So there are two types of pollutants. One is primary pollutants, and second is another is a secondary pollutants. So there are, when we are talking about the particulate matter, so particulate matter could be it's coming from the primary pollution or the secondary pollutions. So I think it's very important to understand. So right now, what we are doing in India, we generally discussing about the primary pollutant, but there could be sources which are responsible for the creating a PM 2.5 in the atmosphere. So we need to understand the primary as well as the secondary pollutant when we are talking about the air pollution. So some basic primary pollutants are the carbon monoxide. That when carbon monoxide we inhale more carbon monoxide, our body I think create carboxy hemoglobin. So carbon monoxide joined with our body hemoglobin and create the, I think, poison in our body. And I think if you are in very high carbon monoxide I think atmosphere, there would be a chance of, I think, a risk, health risk. And carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, NOx, nitrogen dioxide. These are the particulate matter. I think these are the primary pollutants, the particulate matters. And when in the presence of sunlight, these primary pollutants, they also create the secondary pollutants. They are sometimes very harmful. Uh, so, for example, when we are using paint in our household, that we sometimes get a smell of paint. So it's VOC, volatile organic compounds. So these paints are also releasing VOC, and that is also contributing to PM 2.5. But research are ongoing. So when we are talking about the air pollution, we generally talks about the criteria pollutants. Correct criteria. What is the criteria pollutants? Are the most hazardous pollutants. There are I think hundreds of the pollutants are coming out from the different sources, but scientists has classified the most important pollutants which are affecting human health mostly. So it's a carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, lead, sulfur dioxide, ozone, and particulate matter. So when I'm talking about the ozone, this is not a ozone; it's like a troposphere ozone. So when we were in school, we studied about the ozone layer. So this ozone is different, So this ozone is it's a different, which I'll talk later. So when we are saying that nitrogen dioxide, so what is the primary pollutant sources of nitrogen dioxide? So if you see the air pollution data, so the mostly air pollution, the NOx is coming from the vehicular engine. The majority of the NOx, I think about 60 to 70% of the NOx in our country, especially in urban area, are coming out from the vehicular exhaust. So there are other sources also which are contributing to the NOx, but mostly it's coming from the vehicular exhaust. That when engine start, because of the high ignition or high temperature, it creates NOx. And another pollutant is sulfur oxide. The sulfur dioxide is mostly thermal power plants. It's coming from the thermal power plants. And I think about 10 to 20 years ago, we were studying about like how the Taj Mahal is getting yellow or acid rain. That is because of the sulfur dioxide, because sulfur dioxide creates sulfuric acid, and that causes the acid rain. But I think over the time, if you see the sulfur dioxide data from, I think, last 10 years, there is a decrease in sulfur dioxide. And that was, I think, in India, we did a lot of things to reduce the sulfur dioxide, the low sulfur diesel, so many other things. Another pollutant is, I think this is the most important pollutants. This is the common discussion everywhere, whether you go to news channels, newspapers, research articles, everywhere we are talking about the particulate matter. And how, the particulate matter is also having a history. So when we are, I think many of us are civil engineer, environmental engineer, and many people have studied during 80s, 90s. And so during 80s, 90s, we were discussing about the total suspended particulate matters. So we were thinking like all the total suspended particulate matters are the harmful to our health. It's ranging from the 100 microgram micrometer to the 0 micrometer. But I think over the time, when we scientific started studying the particulate matter, so then I think 5 years back or 10 years back, we were talking mostly on the PM10, and now we are talking about the PM 2.5. And I think the PM 2.5 is, I think, the most harmful suspended particle. Why it is important? Because we have this our respiratory system have some limitation, and this PM 2.5 pass our respiratory system protection. I think whatever the protection system we have in our respiratory system, it passes, and it causes lots of health effects. So this is the thing. And when we see I think when when we want to understand what is particulate matter, so this is a human hair. This is a human hair, and this is it's a small sand particles. It's generally 90 micrometer, and this red. It's, I think that if you just want to understand the size of particulate matter, so you can divide first hair into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 times lesser than the human hair size. So then you will get a size of PM10. And after that, you need to do again. I think you have to make. I think 4 times lesser than the PM 2.5, 5 times lesser than the PM 2. It's PM 2.5. So I think the particulate matter is very less and very. I think it's very minute, and that's it's very harmful. And when the particulate matters comes from the different types of pollutant sources, So for example, PM 2.5 is coming from the dust, and PM 2.5 coming from the vehicular exhaust. So obviously the PM 2.5 from the vehicular exhaust would be more harmful to our lungs. And why? Because it has some kind of toxic metals and other attached to it. So that's what this anthropogenic sources of air pollution is very harmful, especially when it comes to the particulate matters. And another thing is this important pollution is the ozone. So in India right now, we all are talking about the particulate matter, but there are other countries like Mexico and China. They already started working on the ozone, because it's not only affecting the human health, but it also affecting the our natural ecosystem, crop production and other things. So ozone, I think it's a secondary pollutant. So I think it's the ozone layer, it's in troposphere. I think it's a, that when VOC and other pollutants, they combine with the in the presence of sunlight, so it makes ozone, and that is very harmful. The impact of ozone is very harmful, and in India we do not have much research. But I feel that, like, when we are talking about the air pollution, why can't we already start working on ozone also? Because that these are all pollutants are coming from the, I think, similar sources. So when we are talking to control about the PM 2.5, we can do the similar thing like ozone. I think because generally, so that would, I think it's very important to discuss all kind of pollutants when we are talking about the pollution and their sources. So how ozone, I think this our atmosphere create the ozone. So the power plants, for example, power plant transportation release a NOx, ammonia from the plants, and the agriculture and other pollutants. And in the presence of sunlight, it creates the ozone, and this is very harmful. And so these are the basic pollutants, and they are in atmosphere, which I think most of the scientific and the policy makers are focusing on. Now I would like to, I think, discuss some terminologies. So you know that most of the time we are hearing in the news like a PM 2.5 concentration, air quality index, emissions. So these are three different terminologies. So sometimes we generally get confused with the emissions, concentration, index. What are these? So firstly, I would talk about the emissions. So emissions means simply quantification. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक आदमी एक आम खाता है तो 10 आदमी कितने आम खाएंगे तो अच्छा 10 आम. सो सिमिलर थिंग इज एमिशंस. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर बस जो है एक किलोमीटर में 5 ग्राम PM 2.5 एमिट करती है तो अगर वह 1000 किलोमीटर चलती है तो कितना PM 2.5 एमिट करेगी. So this is a simple emission inventory. We generally, I think there is the scientist has generally developed some factors. फॉर एग्जाम्पल 1 किलोग्राम कोल जलने से कितना PM 2.5 रिलीज होता है. तो हमारे देश में जो IITs है, बाहर के जो इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं, वो इस प्रकार की स्टडी करते हैं. वो जैसे कचरे को 2 किलोग्राम कचरे को जला के देखेंगे, 1 किलोग्राम कोल को जला के देखेंगे और उसमें देखेंगे कि इसकी यूनिट एक्टिविटी पे कितना एमिशंस निकलता है, एयर पोल्यूशन निकलता है. सो वो होता है एमिशंस. सो मीन्स क्वांटिफिकेशन ऑफ द एयर पोल्यूशन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल ये जो बस है, इस बस में जो ये जो पाइप से जो धुआं निकल रहा है, जब तक ये पाइप से निकल रहा है तब तक ये होता है एमिशन, और जैसे ही एटमॉस्फेयर में आ गया ये हो जाता है कंसंट्रेशन. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर हम बोलते हैं कि सिटी में इफ सिटी इज कंट्रीब्यूटिंग 20 tons of air pollution emissions, it means we are quantifying the PM 2.5 from the different sources. And when we say that 20% of emissions coming from the transportation, it means we are talking about the contribution of that sector. But it doesn't mean that that sector, I think the air pollution contribution from that sector is similar to the emissions, because air pollution atmosphere में अलग अलग जगह से आ रहा है, ट्रांसबाउंड्री भी आ रहा है, इनबाउंड्री भी आ रहा है, और different sources है, और sometimes we are not able to quantify. So emission is simple the quantification of air pollutions coming out from the different sources. For example, 10,000 of tons of waste burning होने से कितना emissions air pollution निकलता है, that is the quantification. And when this emissions comes into the atmosphere, so then it becomes the I think the concentration. So there are different sources of air pollutions. So for the emissions we have a terminology called emission inventory. Emission inventory means similarly this is kind of like any kind of inventory. So here what the scientists do, they generally collect the source information. For example, if I want to develop an emission inventory for a city, so what I would do, I will first collect the transportation related data, number of vehicles, then number of industries. And when we are talking about the transportation, I'll collect the data about how much vehicle kilometer they travel by each vehicle category, how much fuel they consume. This kind of data I'll collect. And then similarly, I'll collect with the industry fuel burning, and for a household cooking, the percentage of household using biomass for cooking, and what is the average quantity of cooking per capita. So that this kind of information I'll collect first. Then after that, I'll multiply with the emission rates. That emission rate is generally calculated by the scientists. So and on the basis of that secondary data, everything is here secondary except the primary data collection for the activities. I can also by this activity data and the emission rate, I will be able to estimate the emissions coming from the different sources. So this is a very simple method we generally use. And when we are talking about the emission inventory, so we are saying that we quantify in an Excel sheet or calculated the amount of pollutant coming from the different sources. So generally we have the emission inventory, like 47% of our emission coming from industry, 2% from the power plant. So this is based on the emission inventory. And another thing is the source apportionment study. So because source apportionment, I think India में source apportionment study पे काफी discussion हो रहा है. तो सोर्स अपॉर्चमेंट स्टडी दो तरीके से हो सकती है. एक तो एमिशन इन्वेंटरी बेस्ड की, उसमें हमने क्या किया कि एमिशन इन्वेंटरी का डेटा हमने कलेक्ट किया, सब प्राइम की एमिशन टोटल, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल कितना व्हीकल्स हैं, कितना किलोमीटर चलता है, कितना फ्यूल कंजम्पशन होता है, और उसको हमने एक प्री डिफाइंड प्री कैलकुलेटेड एमिशन फैक्टर से मल्टीप्लाइड कर दिया, हमने उसको एमिशंस कैलकुलेट कर लिया। उसके बाद एयर क्वालिटी मॉडल्स होते हैं, जो एयर क्वालिटी मॉडल्स जो सॉफ्टवेयर होते हैं, उसमें हमने क्या किया, एमिशंस का डेटा डाल दिया, एंड देन वी इंसर्टेड दे लाइक मेट्रोलॉजिकल कंडीशन एंड ऑल दिस, and based on that meteorological, I think that software, we would be able to calculate the percentage of the contribution of different sources in a city. So the when we are talking about the emission inventory, तो उसमें हम बता सकते हैं कि इन बाउंड्री मतलब जो अगर हमारे पास शहर का डेटा है, अगर हमने शहर में पूरे सोर्सेस का क्वांटिफिकेशन किया, उसके अलावा अगर हमारे पास शहर के बाहर का भी डेटा है, तो फिर हम उसको कैलकुलेट करते हैं और उसके आधार पर हम बताते हैं कि भी यह इस सिटी में इतना प्रतिशत जो वायु प्रदूषण हो रहा है वह शहर के कारण हो रहा है, और बाकी जो है कि बाहर से आ रहा है। तो ये एयर क्वालिटी मॉडल्स होते हैं, सॉफ्टवेयर होते हैं, उससे हम कैलकुलेट करते हैं। So this is also called as source apportionment study, the emission inventory based source apportionment study. Another thing is that we can collect the data. For example, हमने एक जो डिफरेंट एयर क्वालिटी सैम्पलर्स होते हैं, वो एयर क्वालिटी सैम्पलर्स को हमने डिफरेंट डिफरेंट स्टेशन पे विल प्लेस किया, एंड वी कलेक्ट द सैंपल्स फ्रॉम दैट दोस लोकेशंस। एंड यू नो दैट फॉर एग्जांपल हम हमारा हर किसी का डीएनए अलग होता है, हर किसी का एक सिग्नेचर अलग होता है। सिमिलरली दी एयर पोल्यूटेंट्स, जो एयर पोल्यूशन होता है और जो सोर्सेस है उनका सिग्नेचर अलग अलग होता है। फॉर एग्जांपल जैसे कि अगर किसी सैम्पलर ने कलेक्ट किया पीएम 2.5 का सैंपल, तो उसमें डिफरेंट डिफरेंट टाइप्स के एलिमेंट्स आते हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल जिंक आ गया, पोटेशियम आ गया। सो लेबोरेटरी में फर्स्ट व्हाट वी विल डू, we collect these samples of the air quality from the different location, and then after that we analyze the what is the components coming in those samples. For example, it's zinc, potassium, magnesium, whatever the things, and then based on those elements we estimate the possible sources. And we know, the scientists know that the, for example, if PM 2.5 is coming from the natural sources, there could be a possibility of the silica or some for example, if industry is it's coming from the industry, there would be a similar kind of trace amount. So based on that, so there are two types of the source apportionment study. One is purely based on the emission inventory. Another one is based on the collecting the samples from the cities. So ये दो चीजें हैं, इस पे बड़ा मतलब we have to be very careful when we are talking about the source apportionment study. We must ask, like, is it based on the like a sampling based receptor modeling, so you collected the sample, or it's based on the emission inventory. These are the two different techniques. And so, as I said, the concentration and this is the what we are talking about, the emission inventory in the emissions. And when we are talking about the concentration means whatever is available in this atmosphere, that is called concentration. So इसकी proper unit होती है माइक्रोग्राम पर क्यूबिक मीटर, फॉर एग्जांपल फॉर PM 2.5 के लिए. So माइक्रोग्राम पर क्यूबिक मीटर मीन्स एक क्यूबिक मीटर एयर में कितना PM 2.5 अवेलेबल है. That's what we calculate the concentration. So आजकल डिफरेंट एप्स आ गए हैं, और उन एप्स में जो है कि हमें कंसंट्रेशन का डेटा मिलता है कि भाई ये 40, 35, 45, 93 ये कंसंट्रेशन है PM 2.5 का. फिर another thing is air quality index, you know. So people are not aware. I think you know that PM 2.5 or PM 10, and these are the very technical words. So that's what I think for a normal population to understand, what scientists thought that we should develop some kind of index. So based on the potential of the different pollutants, SOx, NOx, PM 2.5, they develop some kind of index, air quality index. So the air quality index is different from the PM 2.5, SOx and NOx concentration. So these are the different terminology that we need to understand. Another aspect is the air quality standards and the guidelines. So the air quality standards, we all know that air quality standards are for the regulatory purpose. You know, it's generally developed by the government and other organization for a regulatory purpose. So for example, CPCB in our country, we have CPCB in United States, US Environmental Protection Agency. So each country has a different standards. Another thing is the guidelines. The guideline is I think it's a guideline by the World Health Organization. So these are the very important terminologies we need to understand. If somebody says that the air quality is all about the guidelines, WHO guidelines, means like for a PM 2.5, it's 25 microgram for the 24 hours, which is I think very less than our air quality standards. So this is very important to understand when we are talking about air quality. I think the terminology, is it a guideline or a standards? So these are the things which we need to understand. And after that, I think when we are talking about the air pollution, so air pollution is not only affecting the human health. You know, when I said the ozone, so ozone, I think it's affecting the crops, and there is a studies, the scientific studies are available that every year I think millions of tons of the crops is lost by the ozone. It affects the water cycle also. It affects the thunderstorm. You know, because of the आप लोगों के लिए एक आश्चर्य की बात होगी कि पिछले कुछ वर्षों में हिमालय के क्षेत्र में बिजली गिरने से होने वाली मौतों का आंकड़ा बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ा है। और इसका कारण है एयर पोल्यूशन। जो एरोसोल्स होते हैं जो एटमॉस्फेयर में, वह जो है कि थंडरस्टॉर्म को क्रिएट कर रहे हैं और इससे काफी ज्यादा मतलब इंक्रीज हुआ, और यह साइंटिफिकली प्रूवन है। So this is also another aspect it's coming out. It affects the climate, it affects the energy. So when I talk about the air pollution in health, so air pollution and health के अलग अलग प्रभाव हैं, जैसे वो हमारे short term impacts हैं, long term impacts. So short term impacts are like a cough, wheezing, shortness of breath, etc. And the long term impacts is stroke, lung cancer, respiratory coordination, cardiovascular disease, cardiovascular disease. These are the long term impacts. You know, so there are a lot of numbers. It shows that air pollution is affecting the human health. So, but I think, you know, sometimes we do not believe on these numbers. But I just wanted to tell you that how air pollution affects like a different, I think especially our kids and old age people. And this is not like this picture is not during the COVID. This is before the COVID. It affects children. It affects old age people, pregnant women, people who do exercise outdoor. So you know that when we are talking about the air pollution and health, so this is based on the global burden of disease data. Air pollution is the third largest cause risk factor for the premature mortality in India, after the dietary risk and high blood pressure. These are the very authentic numbers estimated by the scientific study. But generally, sometimes we generally don't believe on these numbers. हमें ऐसा लगता है कि भाई ये तो एस्टिमेशन है, कोई दूसरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कर रही है, हमें इस पे बिलीव नहीं होता। एक हमारा एक पता नहीं एक है हम लोगों के साथ है, परंतु ये जो डेटा है जो मैं आपको शो कर रहा हूँ, ये हॉस्पिटल का डेटा है। एक समाचार एजेंसी ने दो विभिन्न अस्पतालों के डेटा को इकट्ठा किया। उसके जो रेस्पिरेटरी डिपार्टमेंट के आउट पेशेंट डिपार्टमेंट के नंबर ऑफ रेस्पिरेटरी पेशेंट का डेटा उन्होंने कलेक्ट किया, और उन्होंने पाया कि 2005 से लेकर 2014-15 तक करीब 300% jump in like respiratory related patients. It's very high, and most of them were kids. Most of them were kids. So these are the, I think this is the number for the only 2 hospitals. So you can imagine the situation in the all the hospitals. We do not have enough data. So sometimes we do not believe these type of data. But I think, you know, these type of data is based on the scientific analysis and studies. And this data proves that this is the real data. This data proves that the scientific analysis which conducted by the researchers, it's right, and we have to think about like to mitigate the air pollution. So what we can do to mitigate the air pollution? So I think now cities are adopting different air practices, and I think in Indian government has came up with this National Clean Air Program, where cities has to work on developing a clean air strategies for the air quality mitigation. So in this regard, I think WRI-India has also got a project to develop a clean air action plan for a Surat with the help of different organizations. So what we are doing, we are working on the practicality of the solution. First, we are working on the sectors and especially the stakeholders. We are trying to engage with the stakeholders, and we are trying to understand what is their problem. Sometimes the researchers come up with and there's some random kind of a solution. It says they'll ban it or do that, do this. So we are not doing that. We are going to the stakeholders. By first, we are calculating the air pollution emissions from the different sectors, their contribution to the atmospheric pollution, and then after that, for each sector, we are directly going to the stakeholders who are working on their stakeholder. They are working on that sector, who own that sectors, or who the people who are regulating the sectors. And from different stakeholders, we are asking their problems. So like for example, like what kind of problem they are facing on the ground, and we are trying to suggest our solution to them, and income and how, and we are trying to to make it possible that we can solve both the problem. I think it will solve both the problem, their problem, whatever the problem they are facing, and our problem, like it's air pollution problem. So in this regard, I'll tell you the one example. It's about like one sector we picked up is the construction sector. I think this is the first time in India we went to the construction people and we discussed this thing, because that every year construction industry are facing a lot of problem because banning and a lot of job losses, and the I think so many other losses because of the ban of the construction activities. So we went to them and we discussed with them and we discussed this problem. And I think this is the first time in India we develop a handbook of clean construction practices in Surat with the help of the people who are directly working with the construction. And I really appreciate the CREDI, who is the construction in the industry body, and who helped us to develop this construction clean action guideline. And after that, our the construction we developed this construction guideline. They distributed it to, I think, more than 600 their members, 600 of their members. I think this is also, I think it's we were very happy that the CREDI, I think they are working with us and they are trying to encourage and motivating their builders to follow, I think to follow the clean construction guideline. And I think now it's this clean construction guideline is, I think people are using it, and we are trying to, I think, develop some kind of prototype site where we can show all the practices guideline we have recommended into this. So with this, I would stop, and thank you for your attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ajay. This was an insightful presentation on the fundamentals of air pollution and how it is impacting our health, and how the construction sector in Surat has really taken a leap forward and has developed this construction manual, which is a action plan for how they can mitigate the air pollution impacts in the areas of development. With this, I'm going to invite our next speaker, Mr. R. Suresh, who is currently working in TERI as a fellow and area convener at Center for Environment Studies. Mr. Suresh has extensive experience in ambient air quality monitoring, source emission monitoring, source apportionment studies, indoor air pollution, and exposure assessment studies, etc. Today, he will be sharing the Surat city example on a source apportionment study. Sir, the session is over to you.
Thank you, Prerna, for the nice introduction. So I'm going to share my screen. I hope the slide is clear.
Yes, we can see your screen and your voice is also clear.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm not going to take much time by explaining the basics of air pollution and other aspects, which already Dr. Ajay has covered very nicely. So I'm going to touch the different steps that basically involve in the study, source apportionment study. So I will take an example of the recent study that we have carried out in Surat. So wherever I'm taking an example, that is the study results which we have done for the Surat city. So this is just to inform you that I can't share this data because this is in the draft report stage. So we can't share the data with anyone. So that is the reason why I'm not sharing any information regarding it. If you are having any questions related to this particular study, I am very glad to answer that question. So with that note, I am just getting into the presentation. So just to give a brief background, as you all aware, air pollution is a matter of concern in most of the Indian cities. As per the recent statistics, 80% of the Indian cities are violating the standards for particulate matter. So it has impact on health, climate change, and the agricultural productivity, and also even the economy of a country. So these are the some of this. So with this view, so we need to adopt some measures that can arrest the air pollution problem in Indian cities. As you all aware that under the National Clean Air Program, CPCB has come up with 122 non-attainment cities. So, and they have given an interim target of reducing air pollution by 20 to 30% by 2024. So in order to have a strict interim target, we need to achieve that target. We need to have a basic idea of which are the sources which are contributing to the air quality of these cities. Here the role of source apportionment study. Source apportionment study is one such study where you can understand what are the sources which are contributing to the prevailing air quality of a region, so that we can have suggest measures, sector specific measures, because if you don't know the sources, you don't know which sector you need to concentrate so that the air quality of that particular city can be improved. So source apportionment study is such a study which you can tell clearly. So if a city is having more pollution coming out from transport sector or an industrial sector, then you can concentrate more on that particular sector so that you can suggest measures in that particular sector so that the air quality of that particular city is reduced, and so that they can achieve the interim target as set by the National Clean Air Program. So that is the thing. So basically, source apportionment study is basically carried out for the particulate matter only, because currently we are not doing source apportionment study for any gaseous pollutants. So with that view, source apportionment study is major objectives of conducting source apportionment studies are to monitor PM10 and PM2 concentration at different. So already Dr. Ajay has told. So I'll be getting into the detailed methodology for source apportionment study. When you talk about the objective of a source apportionment, the first point is to measure the concentration in different parts of the city where you are taking the source apportionment study. Then you conduct source apportionment study. You have to conduct source apportionment to identify the sources which are contributing to the air quality of that particular city, both in PM10 and PM2.5. Then you have to project the emissions. So you have, in order to reduce pollution, in order to apply some measures, you have to understand what are the impact of that particular measure so that the air quality can be reduced. So once you come up with some impact analysis, then you will suggest strategies which can reduce the air quality of that particular. So you'll be suggesting a set of interventions that can be used to reduce air pollution in the cities. So overall, the approach for the entire source apportionment studies are shown in this particular flow chart. There are two approaches that also a little bit Dr. Ajay has already mentioned. So there are basically two approaches which are used to for conducting source approach. First is the dispersion modeling approach, and the second is the receptor modeling approach. The dispersion modeling approach means we are starting from the source and arriving at the receptor. That means you are estimating emission inventory, you are estimating emission for all the particular sources of that particular city, and that together with the meteorology of that particular city will feed into the input to the CMAQ model, and that will lead to the source apportionment of the different sources which are contributing to the air quality. Normally in theory we are using WRF CMAQ model is used for the source apportionment study that we are earlier we used to do air model source apportionment study. And the second method is the receptor model, where we are starting from the receptor and arriving at the source. So what are you saying is we are monitoring ambient air quality at different locations of that particular city that you are going to hold the study. Then you are monitoring the ambient air quality of both PM10 and PM2.5 at different locations in the city. study. So I'll come to details whenever you are going for a source of how the locations are selected. That is very much important. So you need to cover all those factors when you do the ambient air quality monitoring. So once you collect the samples at different land use categories, you do monitoring for both summer and winter season. For Delhi like city, because since we have another season which is the stubble burning season, where you are coming, so consider that as post monsoon season, where the air quality is much higher in Delhi when people are started talking about air pollution. So if Delhi is such city, we need to carry out source apportionment study for 3 seasons: summer, winter, and post monsoon. So post monsoon monitoring is basically used to capture the impact of stubble burning in the nearby city. So once you do the monitoring, then you will analyze the samples collected on different filter media to different metals, ions, EC, carbon content, and that will feed as one of the inputs to the receptor model. The other input which is used for running the receptor model is the source profile. That means when you have done the characterization for the different parts of the city, the samples you have collected, but what the source, which are the different profiles that is coming from the source, is not known. So you can create your own sources. For example, if an industry is burning a coal, so what are the content that actually characterize that particular coal? Similarly, if the residential sector using a wood, you need to know the profile of wood. So this is another. So wherever possible, you have to use your own profiles. In the absence of a own profile, you need to take profiles from other cities which is already established. So in the absence of even Indian profiles, you need to even depend on the international profiles, which is in a way not a correct approach. So my suggestion would be, whenever you are going for a source apportionment study using receptor model, wherever possible sources, you need to collect the samples and go for the analysis of the different characterization profiles of metals, ions, and carbon content. That will be giving a more robust results rather than taking the profile of some already established, because the profiles for each of the fuels and other the road dust that is from different parts of the city varies considerably. So you can't keep a common profile for all the profiles. So wherever
Suresh, sir?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bhavesh.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Can you go on presentation mode? Actually, the text is not visible.
Text is not visible. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I tried earlier also. Okay, thank you. So that is another method. So these two inputs, the source profile and the monitored data profile, will act as an input to run the CMAC receptor model. So there also we will arrive at the source apportionment. So the results of both the receptor modeling and dispersion model will be compared, and model validation will be carried out. And based on that, we are arriving at the air quality management plan. The air quality management plan is nothing. What are the things that need to consider in each of the cities so that the air quality can be improved drastically? So we can draft an air quality management plan based on the input from based on the output from both of the models. So this is the overall approach for carrying out source apportionment study. Now I'll get into details. So when I talk about receptor model, I already explained a little bit about this. So as a part of the receptor model, the major thing that you need to consider is the ambient air quality monitoring of selected locations. So you had, whenever you go for a study, for example, Surat is such a city where industrial hub is very much prominent in that area. So you need to understand the land use pattern of a particular city that you are going to consider for your study. So accordingly, you need to select different locations. For example, Surat, because there are different industrial clusters in the area. So we have selected two locations in the industrial areas, and there are different residential areas which are available. So we will take residential area, then we have a commercial area, and we have curbside location. So these are the locations, these are the things which we need to consider when you take you can't, and ultimately these locations should spread across the city rather than concentrate. So you can go at one point and select all the 7 locations at one point. That cannot be simply represent the city. So you have to have a representative samples from the whole city, so that we to be spread out across the city, and also you need to consider the land use pattern of that particular city. In addition to the major things, so you need to understand what is the contribution of ambient air quality of that particular city which is coming from outside. How will you estimate that? For that, you need to have a location outside the city. There also we need to monitor parallel. So how will you take the location outside the city? That is based on the meteorology of the region. So wherever you are going for a study, first you need to understand the predominant wind direction of that particular city. Accordingly, we need to select a background location. So the background location should be in the upwind direction of the city, away from the city. So whenever you go for a source apportionment study, you have locations within the city which represent different land use categories, and other location which is very much important is the background or control location, which is basically used to understand the contribution of air pollutants in that particular city from outside. So for that, we need to take one location from the outside the city. So this is the receptor modeling technique that we are following. Then I already told you, this is the collected samples of PM10 and so we will be doing ambient air quality monitoring for both the seasons, summer and winter, at least for 10 to 15 days is a minimum requirement of carrying out any source apportionment study. You need to do the ambient air quality monitoring a minimum of 15 days in each of the seasons for different filter type, because if you want to go for the analysis of ions, we need to use Teflon filter papers. If you want to go for the analysis of the carbon content, you have to use for quartz filter paper. So when you are going for the source apportionment study, you have to have all those profiles. So you have to monitor the ambient air quality with the different filter media, both Teflon and quartz. So these collected filter paper for both PM10 and PM2.5 will be further analyzed to estimate the different metals, ions, and carbon content. And this together with the source profile, I already told you. So there are different sources. For example, line source such as transport sector profiles already developed with ARI will be used. And for point and area source, IIT Kanpur has already developed, IIT Bomba, even TERI has developed a lot of source profile for different sectors. So wherever do source apportionment TERI do a source apportionment study, we normally collect samples on our own. That will also be characterized, which can be used as an input to the CMP model. These two will act as an input to the CMP model, then arrive at the source apportionment study. That is the general methodology of the receptor model. Then the dispersion modeling is, I am taking about the right-hand part of the flow. There are two flowcharts. The second is the right-hand part, which is the dispersion modeling. What we are doing is, you first identify different sources. So that is a reconnaissance survey is required whenever you go for a source apportionment. You need to roam about the city to understand different sectors which are contributing to the air quality. You have to list out transport sector, they are the major contributor. There are thermal power plants in the city, maybe within the city if you can, because whenever that will come to later. Then we will be having a residential residential combustion process will be happening for cooking and lighting purpose. There are industries, there are construction activities. Then the transport sector is contributing another emission, which is in the road dust resuspension. When the vehicle is moving, the dust deposited on the road is recirculated again and again. That will act on input to the particulate matter. Then refuse burning, which is already happening in various parts of the country, which is not yet finally completed. Then DG sets, this is another source. There are cities. So though in Delhi, you can have less number of DG sets you can find, but in most of the cities like Bangalore, when we did the model, the major contribution is from DG sets. There are agriculture residue burning. There are big kilns which are in operation. There are crematory hotels. So you have to list out all the sources, all the different sources. Then you have to estimate emission inventory for each of these particular sources. How will you estimate emission inventory? I can give a just example. The simple formula for estimation of emission inventory is, you have to multiply the activity data into the emission factor. Activity data is what? For example, if it is a residential area, the activity data is basically the fuel consumption, which is fuel used for the particular residential sector for combustion or for cooking and other lighting purposes. So that can be get from primary source survey, or you can get it from NSS, so secondary sources. So because the NSS data is very old data, so what TERI normally do is, we do this primary survey to actually know the fuel consumption pattern in the residential sector. So once you get the quantity of different fuels which are used for combustion, which are used for cooking and other lighting purposes, you just simply multiply that with the emission factor, which is emission factor is a factor which is already established by different studies. You need to collect all those information from literature, and you can also develop your own emission factor in your controlled environment. That can also be used. So this, once you develop the emission inventory, this emission inventory, because for every air pollution, the major factor is the meteorology. Meteorology plays a vital role in dispersion of air pollutants. So the two inputs which are getting into the reception model is the emission inventory together with the meteorology. Hello? Hello?
Please go ahead, Mrs.
So I'm getting some noise, sorry.
Yeah, I've just muted.
Okay. So this will act as the meteorology together with the emission inventory, and also you need to know the boundary condition. Boundary conditions means if you are studying in a city, you need to understand what is the contribution from outside the city. So that also will act as an input to the dispersion model. All these three factors, meteorology, emission inventory, and boundary condition. This will act as an input to the dispersion model that will then leads to the simulated concentration. So wherever you do the ambient air quality monitoring, you know the concentration of that particular location. And this concentration can also be estimated from the modeled air quality. CMAC model will also provide the concentration. So you can validate your modeled or simulated concentration with the actual monitored concentration. Then you validate the data. Then once you are getting satisfactory results, then you can get to know the different source apportionment, what are the sources that are contributing to the air quality. Then we will later on do some intervention analysis. So we have to develop future scenario for if there are different scenarios which is already developed, business as scenario and alternate scenario. That is a sort of an advanced things which we need to know what are the things which are leading to increased pollution for particular. For example, in a residential sector, the main factor that is influencing is the population. So population will be increasing. So you need to understand the population growth, and accordingly, if you want to project your current emission inventory to the future for 2025 and 2030, you need to understand the population growth rate, and that will be used to estimate emission for future. So different intervention analysis for each of the sectors will be carried out to arrive at the source apportionment, and then accordingly we can suggest. So these are the detail of the source apportionment of two modeling approaches. Now I'll get into the results of some. So see, this is the Surat typical example. So what we have done is we have selected 7 locations within 6 locations within the Surat city, and 1 location I already told you as a background location, which is outside the city. So we have total 7 locations selected in Surat for ambient air quality monitoring, and we have done monitoring for both the seasons, summer and winter season. In each season, at each location, we have done 15 continuous days ambient air quality monitoring with the different filter media. So these are the photographs represent the monitoring at different locations. So we have selected 2 industrial locations in Surat, 1 curbside location, 1 commercial location, and 2 residential locations. These are the locations that. So how did I select these 7 locations? Based on the meteorology, predominant wind direction, we have identified the background location. So we have kept the background location in the upwind direction of the city. And the others within the city, how will you estimate the, how will you locate the different location based on the land use, land cover pattern of the city? We have that will be basically done either through reconnaissance survey or a REKI, or we can discuss with the policymakers such as Pollution Control Board or SMC. So in our case, we have discussed at length with the Pollution Control Board officials and also with the SMC officials for identification of different locations in Surat city. Accordingly, we have identified 7 locations for ambient air quality monitoring. So this is the spread of, so I already told you, you need to select the location which should be spread across the city. So these are the location which is spreading different in part of the Surat city that we have carried out ambient air quality monitoring. Now this is the results. So from the results, you can see the box plot for the PM10 and PM2.5 concentration for all the 7 locations. So when you look at the PM10 data, you can see that the bar at the middle of the box represents the average concentration or a mean concentration. So from the figure, it is very much clear that in both the locations, the air quality of Surat city was very much higher than the prescribed standard. And same is the case with the PM2.1. PM2.1 at some of the location during summer season, the values were below the standard, but in most of the cases, the values were much above the standard. That is the results saying. So then once you done the ambient air quality monitoring, I already told you, you have to collect the samples on different filter media. So this has to be analyzed for a set of metals. I already mentioned here, there are 37 metals which is identified for source apportionment studies. And there are 11 to 12 ions and the total EC and OC, elemental carbon and all organic carbon. So these are the different filter media that we are used for metals. We have to use Teflon filter paper. For even if you wanted to measure only metals, then you can even glass fiber will also do. Then Teflon will again used for the ions, ion concentration, and for carbon analysis, you have to get quartz filter paper. So the collected filter paper will be further analyzed for all the parameters that is shown in this particular slide. Then this is the chemical characterization result from the, so this is not that important. So I just to show how will you represent the data for a source of, this is the way how will you represent. So this is the chemical characterization. The bar graph, it is very much clear that from most of the locations, you can see the blue is basically ions. Ions is the major contributor, followed by the orange one, which is elements, and then the carbon content. So this is the trend for both PM10 and 2.5 in most of the locations in Surat. Then we will receptor model. So I already told you that the earlier slide that the characterization results together with the source profile. Source profile we will get from the secondary literature and also the one-level source profile. These two will act as input to run the receptor model, and the final source apportionment through receptor model is you can see from the pie chart. This is how you represent the source apportionment results. So from the pie chart, it is very much clear that for summers, PM10 C, the dust is the major contribution, followed by industry, then sea salt, because you know Dumas Sea is very close to the Surat city, so the impact of that particular thing is appearing in almost all the samples. So same is the case with the PM2. When you look at the PM2 for concentration, again, road dust, not only road dust, it is dust from, so because that is one of the drawbacks of receptor model. You can't distinguish dust from different locations. For example, construction, soil dust, and this kind of things cannot be separately estimated from receptor model unless and until you have a proper profile for each of these categories. So it will show the dust in general. So then for PM2.5, the next contributor is industry. Same is the case with the winters also. So this is how the final source apportionment of a receptor model look like. So this will be validated with the dispersion model, which I am coming into the next part. So this is the emission inventory. So then I already told you, you have to identify different sources in the city, and then you have to estimate emissions for each of these particular cities, and then emission inventory will be developed. So from the graph, it is very much clear that they for PM10, the major contributor is this is industries. Industries is major, road dust is the major contributor. So you can see this is how you represent the emission inventory. Then this input data together with the meteorology, we will this is the spatial distribution emission that is shown for in the so once you estimate emission from all the sectors, you will allocate the emissions in grid wise. So we will divide the whole city. So whenever you go for a source apportionment study, we never restrict our study within the city boundary. We will take the whole district or the airshed. That is the best approach. So I will come to you why airshed is very much important, because you need to understand whenever you take a city. So the city itself is not contributing that much. Major share, for example, in Delhi, when we did the source apportionment study for Delhi NCR, we could find that 60% of Delhi's pollution is coming from outside. So that simply means that even if you control all the sources within the city, you can't achieve the standard. Similar is the case with Surat also. I will come to the results in the later slide. So in Surat, so this is not only for Surat or Delhi or any other cities. Most of the cities, when you measure the, when you come at the sources, it will be found, it will be observing that the major contribution is from outside the city. So what does that mean? You can't concentrate your study on a particular city. Rather, you need to understand from where all these pollution are coming to the city. If you understand until you manage air quality for the whole airshed, that is what is called the airshed. Airshed means whenever you take a city, you need to understand within the city from where at all it can come from within the city. So that is the airshed approach. You need to go for an airshed approach whenever you go for wherever possible, because it is very difficult to get the data for an airshed approach, because you need to have this airshed doesn't mean that it will come only in Gujarat area. So it can come to other parts of the state also. Then it is very difficult for you to get that data. So that's the reason normally people won't take the airshed. They will just restrict their study in the city only. So wherever possible, it is better to take the airshed rather than going for the city. So it will be unless and until you adopt measures for all the airshed, your air quality of the city cannot be improved. That is the fact. Then this is the source apportionment of steady results, which you can see from this. This is winter and summer season that we can see. So from this, it is the different sectors. Industry is a major sector, road dust is a major sector. So we can get to know from all those. This is how you represent the results of a source apportionment study. So when you, so even I already told you, you need to understand. So from the bar graph, it is very much clear that For summer PM 2.5, 70% of the pollution is coming from outside the city. When you look at the overall summer, winter PM 10 and PM 2.5, in most of the cases, the pollution from within the city of Surat is coming majorly from outside the city. So that is a simple point which we can clear, that even if you control, even if you limit all the sources within the city, you can't achieve the standard. So there, an airshow approach, a combined effort is required to bring the pollution level to the anticipated interim target set by NCAP. So this is the simple submission from my end. So once you get the results from both the models, you will validate the results. So for the top, you can see the dispersion model results, and the bottom you can, so it is more or less matching. So when you see the dispersion model for summers for PM10, you can see that major contribution is dust. Similar results we are observing for receptor model also. So this won't vary that much unless and until you collect the data in a proper manner. So this should be, that is the purpose of taking both the modeling. You can do the source apportionment study with one approach as well, but you don't know whatever you have done is right or not. Not to that, you need to validate your data. That is the purpose. Wherever you go for a source apportionment, you have two modeling approach so that you can validate your results with each of the model results. This is the same case for PM 2.5. So we have very good correlation with both the model results. So I'm just stopping here with the following thing, that what you learn from so far the presentation is that where you have to have a detailed scientific study rather than going for I will give you an example in the Delhi case. In the earlier thing, we have assumed that Delhi's pollution is majorly from transport. So, but in reality, when we did the source apportionment study, that is not the case. There are residential contribution, there are industrial contribution which is affecting Delhi. So you can't imagine that these are the sectors which are contributing, so that we can, so you need to come up with a scientific study so that you can actually get to know what are the sources which are contributing to the air quality, so that you can, so detailed scientific study is very much required rather than doing something as such from the secondary literature or something like that. So effective air quality management is the need of the hour. So source apportionment study is an integral part of it. So whenever you go for a air quality management, so what is the ultimate objective of all the non-attending cities? They have to manage the air quality. So how will you manage the air quality without doing the source apportionment study? So you need to have a source apportionment study is an integral part of air quality management. So, and the second other point I want to confirm here, that one need to prioritize sources need to be, you have to, I already told. So you have to understand through source apportionment study that what are the sectors which are majorly contributing that particular city, so that you can sector specific action can be implemented so that the air quality can be bring to the required level. Then the regular, so once you've done the source apportionment study, then you have started implementing a lot of measures. So you don't know the effectiveness of the implementation strategies. You need to have a source. So you once you have done the source apportionment, there ends. No, you have to go for a source apportionment study for a regular basis, at least once in every 3 years you need to, so that you can take into account the growth patterns and the impact of the measures taken. So how will you, so there are different approaches nowadays. There are real-time source apportionment study nowadays came into place. So you can understand what are the effectiveness of the implementations measures that you have taken. The final point that I have to mention here is, whenever you go for a source apportionment study for any city, the ideal method would be to go for an airshed approach to tackle the air pollution. With that note, I would like to close the presentation over here. So I will be happy to take any questions from the audience if they want to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. We will be taking the questions at the end of all the presentations. I'm again requesting all the participants to please type in your questions if you have. And those who have raised hands will call out once the last presentation is done. So I want to thank Mr. Suresh for an apt example of source apportionment study where he discussed the detailed methodology of undertaking the same and simultaneously clarified that scientific assessment is essential to ascertain the source of air pollution and hence the required intervention. Moving ahead, we have Mr. Parag Dave. He's Senior Environment Engineer and Regional Officer at the Gujarat Pollution Control Board, Surat office. He's responsible for regional office functioning and is involved in initiatives like emission trading schemes, preparation of city-specific air quality improvement plans, and Surat Clean Air Action Plan. Mr. Dave has vast experience in handling mitigation projects related to air quality and is also a nodal officer for Surat City in NCAP compliance activities. Along with Mr. Dave, we have Mr. Unnat Shah, Assistant Environment Engineer, Gujarat Pollution Control Board, Surat. At GPCB, he is working on a variety of projects such as National Clean Air Program, compliance, emission trading schemes, emission trading scheme project, the Surat Clean Air Action Plan project, initiatives related to energy efficiency promotion and cleaner fuel alternatives in the industrial clusters of Surat. Mr. Dave and Mr. Shah will be discussing air pollution control best practices through a case of Surat. So the session is over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prerna. First of all, I must, am I audible?
Yes, sir. I think maybe you want to adjust your mic a little. It's a little fainted.
Now?
It is much better, sir.
Fine. First of all, I am very much thankful on behalf of Gujarat Pollution Control Board to National Institute of Urban Affairs and along with the TERI and WRI officers. Here, I will just, in my allotted time, I just want to share that only because of the successful completion of Source Apportionment Study for Surat, with the help of Surat Municipal Corporation, TERI and WRI, we have just focused on the sectors where we have to concentrate to for the betterment of air quality, and accordingly we have also planned our air action plan also. There are three major sectors which our office have initiated with the help of Surat Municipal Corporation. Whatever the activities they are supposed to be carried out in reducing the air quality, they are doing extremely well. And it is a joint and collaborative effort by Gujarat Pollution Control Board Regional Office Surat as well as Surat Municipal Corporation. One another thing, in the air pollution from the industrial sector, we have one successful model or the project we are running right now is emission trading scheme, which in our mind it is a successful implementation of that scheme. We have win-win situation because of the implementation of this project that air pollution level is considerably reduced. Side by side, industry is also benefited economically and other way also. Third thing, we have also stringent our activities, I mean taking actions very strongly to the industry which are again non-compliant. So these are the major things. Only because of Source Apportionment Study, I can say that comment that this is possible for Surat, and Surat, I can say it is a success story for controlling the air pollution. I just request my colleague Mr. Unnat to just give the presentation in detail for the such best practices what we have adopted in Surat to the all, please. And allow me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I am with this brief. I move to directly to the presentation. Am I audible?
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So basically, Surat, this is a profile of Surat city. Surat is one of the oldest municipality city and urban agglomeration. It is one of the fastest growing city in the world as well as in Asia. So this is the just map of land use pattern in the city. So prominently commercial, industrial, and residential sector are located in the city. So it is also popular, densely populated city. So it is difficult for the authorities to take certain measures because of the population. So since the air quality movement has been started with the NCAP project overall in the India, so I will give a brief introduction about the National Clean Air Program. So it is a central government launch program, which is a long-term, time-bound and national level strategy to reduce air pollution in the cities. It aims to target 20 to 30% reduction in particulate matter by the year of 2025 and 2026, keeping the emission base as at 2018. Currently, 124 cities have been identified as a non-attainment cities under the NCAP project. Surat is one of the non-attainment cities. Non-attainment cities which have continuously non-compliant national ambient air quality standards since last 5 years. So Surat is incorporated in this city, in this list. Considering the importance of the project, Honorable NGT also taken so much cognizance of this program, and they have issued several directions considering the timely compliance of the NCAP project. So NCAP for the Surat, under the NCAP project, Ministry of Environment and Forest has allocated 10 crores grant initially to initiate certain measures for the reduction of air pollution. Later on, under as Surat is million plus cities, another 131 crore is granted to take more prominent action for the betterment of air quality. Surat Clean Air Action Plan has been prepared under the NCAP project, and Surat Municipal Corporation and GPCB jointly monitor and strictly complying with all the action with other district authorities. We have also taken several initiatives as a part of NCAP and as a air pollution reduction strategy, like research and capacity building intervention. It is an emission inventory study, source apportionment study, preparation of Surat Clean Air Action Plan with the help of WRI and TERI technical institutions. It also covers health impact assessment studies. So it is really helpful for the knowing the available pollution major sources in the city. Other technical measures for the industries taken are the SEMS monitoring, it is a continuous emission monitoring system, implementation of innovative projects, improved air quality monitoring network, banning on certain polluting fuels, improved air pollution control device performance. The technical measures regarding the transportation sector taken is the PUC monitoring system, eliminating the traffic congestion, eliminating testing, emission testing centers, efficient public transportation system. I will go in detail with each of these steps which have taken during the Surat. This is the general industrial profile of the Surat district. As you all, our Surat is well known for the textile, diamond, and chemical clusters. It also major industrial. It is also a hub of major industrial complex in the city. So there are certain industrial clusters shown in the map. One you can see that Hazira, Sez, Katargam GIDC, Pandesara Sachin GIDC, Palsana Industrial Cluster, Olpad Industrial Cluster. So it is a industrialized city, you can say. So technical measures related to industry. So GPCB has banned certain high pollution potential fuel in the non-attainment cities, like sulfur, which highly high pollution which have high pollution potential, like sulfur dioxide, petcoke, FO, which have major source of sulfur dioxide. We are also GPCB have formed certain guidelines, and we are strictly enforcing it, like to have an adequate air pollution control device with the utilities, handling guideline to reduce the fugitive emission from the industries. One of the innovative project is implemented in Surat is a common boiler. It is a novel concept. Uh, it is uh, it is a centralized facility, steam generation facility, which supplies steam to the its member industry. So it is like a open and shut valve case, like your PNG supply. So any one industry have to use steam, just they have to open the valve and they can easily use it. So there is this project is advantageous for the small scale industries. Its benefit like more space availability to the industry. There is a proper fuel utilization, uh, energy efficiency, better combustion technology can be implemented. Better air pollution control device can be installed, and it also remove the small scale industry from the regulation of the Air Act. So it's a win-win situation on the both side. So it's a one of the novel concept adopted in the Surat. We are also monitoring industries to the SAMS device, continuous emission monitoring system. More than 350 industries are connected through the SAMS device, and we have also in-house Axion system, which is also help us in the industrial monitoring. Another unique project implemented in Surat is the pilot emissions trading scheme. It is a first of its kind in the world, you can say. Uh, it is also known as cap and trade system, where uh, where the member industry cap emission cap is decided over member industries, and certain permits are given to the industry according to their capacity of the utilities. And industry are encouraged to reduce and save their permits, and saved permits are traded to the other industry. We have also developed the online platform so they can easily trade these permits, and they are encouraged to involve in this project. Surat Clean Air Action Plan has been also started with the help of Surat Municipal Corporation and WRI and TERI. So it is also gives us overall priority of the points which are required to taken to reduce air pollution control. Another exclusive framework in the Gujarat is the environmental audit scheme. It is applicable to certain type of industries where industry goes through the environmental audit throughout the year, uh, where where GPCB recognizes certain environmental auditing team. It consists of the environmental engineer, chemical engineer, uh, microbiologist, and chemist. And the team assess the industry throughout the year and gives us suggestion and recommendation. So it is another project which help in reducing air and water pollution in the city. Another project is taken as the energy efficiency improvement and clean fuel uses and promotion of the clean fuel consumption in the local industrial cluster with the help of uh, technical organization and other government agencies like MSME, DIC, and all. So this kind of work has been undertaken in the Surat city. So technical measures relevant to transportation. Uh, in the Surat, 15 years and older vehicles are already phased out. Notification has been issued. Uh, we, uh, we are also promoting electric vehicles. So 10 buses are already on road, and Surat Municipal Corporation also engage in procuring another 150 buses. So this is the public buses which will use for the public transportation. Surat has another BRTS network for the efficient public transport. It is a bus rapid transmit system. So during the past years, BRTS network has been increased. Recently, metro work has been started in the city. So we hope it will complete very soon, and it will further enhance the public transportation. So vehicular emission can be reduced. Surat city is one of the maximum flyover in the country, you can say, and due to that, the traffic congestion is reduced and free traffic movement has been observed in the city. PUC certificate system. It is centralized and computerized recently, so the data can be accessed centralized and by the database system. Another is the road dust research. It is also a major factor in the air pollution. So to reduce it, SMC is carrying out certain works like a widening of the road, congestion in the cities, reducing congestion points, monitoring of the older vehicles, trying to pothole-free roads, restriction of MSW burning, regular sweeping over the roads and flyovers. There is a penalty over the burning of biomass and MSW. So, and other is the green belt development. So, there are certain campaigns developed by the SMC and the Forest Department uh, to the improve green belt area in the city. Uh, Under the NCAP project, SMC was also developed green belt along the traffic corridors to absorb the vehicular pollution nearby the road. Third one is the capacity building intervention. So it is equivalent important to capacity building of the stakeholders to implement any project or any plan. So regular technical programs are conducted for the government institution, private institution, as well as industries and industrial association. With their help, the required measures has been taken by these technical sessions. As a part of NCAP, we have we have taken certain workshop for the management of construction and demolition waste, management of MSW, for the reduction of industrial pollution, for the industrial sector, uh, for better construction practices, workshop for the construction stakeholders is also separately taken. Uh, Green Belt Development Campaign Initiative. So it is also necessary. And during the last Water Environment Day, 5th June, in the Surat city, more than 1 crore tree samplings are distributed among the citizens. So it will help in further enhancement of the green belt coverage. Uh, as a part of Surat Clean Air Program and Tri-Party MOU, construction emission practices guideline handbook is already published, and it is already discussed in the first session. So I will not go in further detail. Uh, another uh, Another campaign like open waste burning and road dust resuspension are also initiated by the SMC. Regular sweeping are also conducted. They are also aware about the importance of this work and sensitize them to how this work is improve the air quality of the city. So air quality information also dissemination to the citizens. There are 2 CIQMS sensor-based in the city, and 5 more will be procured under this project, and it will give us better result in the future. So this is the outcome of these all efforts. As you are aware, the particular matter is the area of concern in the Indian cities. So here is a PM10 and PM2.5 map of the all location where ambient air quality is regularly monitored. Another map is the all major pollutants is the PM10, PM2.5, SO2, and NOx. You can see that so there is substantial reduction in PM10 and PM2.5 in last 3 years. So this happened due to active involvement of the district authorities and the timely action of these agencies. We believe it will continue in the future also. So this is the summary of this all action. One of the project is emission trading scheme, which is reducing stationary source in the industry. Time to time, we have observed that overall cap is reduced since the project has been started. So it gives us a positive outlook towards the future. Other innovative projects like community boilers is also implemented in the Surat. Surat, there is a state level and city level air program committee which continuously reviewing the actions of the authorities, and review meeting timely also taken under chairmanship of the municipal commissioner. Surat Clean Action Plan is also prepared in the collaboration with the WRI and TERI. So it will further give us the future steps which will further improve the air quality of the city. We are also conducting regular ambient air quality monitoring through 10 stations under various projects. Like among the 10, 6 are industrial station, one is in the residential, 2 are in commercial plus residential, another one is in the commercial plus industrial area. For the Surat, we are actively collaborating with the other expert agency or technical institution for the better further study of the improvement in the air quality and reduce how we can reduce the air pollution of the city. So one of the clean exclusive guideline of the clean construction practice is an outcome of the such trilateral agencies MOU. So finally, way forward, Surat City is already recognized through various awards. It is the second cleanest city in the India. Recently, in the Climate City Framework, it has been ranked first with the highest mark. We are planning to enhance ambient air quality monitoring through this continuous ambient quality station. We have planned to install 5 stations in a collaboration with the SMC. There is a public outreach intervention and grievance redressal system will be implemented at the state level. There is a existing system for this grievance redressal right now, but for the better platform and user friendly availability, this platform is state-wise developed, and it will further help us to combat air pollution with the active involvement of the citizens. We are also believe that effective mitigation measures for the from the allocated grant is taken under the NCAP. We are also planning to carry out industrial stack emission monitoring through CCTV network. So this project is under pipeline. We are also waiting. We are also rigorously implementing air action plan and micro action plan implementation as per the direction of the GPCB and the Ministry of Environment and Forest. So with this I will end. So thank you inviting us to discuss Surat practices for the reduction of the air pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Anat, and thank you, Parag sir. This is a wonderful presentation, which is basically giving how Surat is really going about, and is determined to curb the entire air pollution situation in the city. Now we have a few people one participant who has raised her hand, and we have 5 questions. So I'm going to first request the participant who has raised the hand to go ahead and speak. I have allowed you to speak. So Neelam Gamit, if you want to speak up now, you need to unmute yourself and then speak. Okay, while she's still trying to unmute, let's go ahead and look at the questions. The first question in the list is, I think, and it is, I'm going to request Neelam, are you there? Do you want to speak up now? All right. So I'm going to move to the questions. So the first question in the list is there a detailed open data about different air pollutants available online which common citizens can access? This is a common question. Maybe Dr. Ajay, you would want to take up. And they are basically looking at a time period, data collection of, it's a temporal data that they're looking at, they're wanting to look at time period through, let's say, past 10 years data for concentration levels in air for different cities. Do we have any source? Dr. Ajay, you are on mute, I think. We can't hear you. No. Hello? No, we can't hear you. No, I can't. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, now we can.
Yes.
Please go ahead. Please.
Yeah. So I think you know that these days the Pollution Control Board, both State Pollution Control Board and the Central Pollution Control Board, they are sharing their data and they have an open platform. So CPCB has the open data portal where you can find all the continuous monitoring station data from I think many years. And there is also a Central Pollution Control Board data bank. I think it's a very old data bank. Many people are not aware about that, where you can find, I think, old data archive also. So yes, and other than there are private organization like OpenAQ and other things, other organizations, they are also publishing the old archive data. So there's a lot of sources these days, and yes.
I see Mr. Suresh has raised his hand.
Yeah, already Ajay has spoken about that. So just in addition to the new thing, there are two kind of data which is available in CPCB website, cpcb.nic.in. One is the manual monitoring station where you can get the archive of past 10 years very well for the 4 pollutants, not more than that, PM10, PM2.5, SO2 and NOx. For the continuous air quality monitoring station, so since we haven't started the continuous air quality monitoring 10 years back from now, so we won't get that much archive data for continuous air quality monitoring data. Maybe you can get it for last 5 years or 6 years. For that also for not all the locations. There are some locations because the continuous monitoring stations started in place maybe in the late 2018-19. So from that point onwards, you can get the continuous monitoring data. But for the manual monitoring station data, of course, it is available with the website, CPCB website. Yeah, that is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. So the next question, we have total 5 questions. So the next question in the line is, are the air quality sensors very expensive and hence not many installed? Mr. Parag, would you want to take up this question?
I think the question is very correct. It is very costly equipment. Right now, in Surat, on behalf of GPCB, we are not monitoring or running any continuous air quality monitoring stations. But as Unnat has said rightly, that there are 5 continuous air quality monitoring stations are planning to be in operation in the coming days. These things of operation and smooth maintenance without any interruptions is also going to be considered. We have some continuous air quality monitoring stations in other areas, in Jamnagar and Ahmedabad. There also we are having such cumulative maintenance, annual maintenance contract or cumulative maintenance contract. By implementing that type of work, the cost is included in the initial capital cost only, so it can be avoided. Yes, like this.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Suresh, again, you have your hand raised.
This is regarding the local census only. So somebody has asked about the price of the local census. That is a wide range from starting from thousands, so you can even up to get 5 lakh or 2 lakh, 2.5 lakh census are available in the market. They are cheaper, but not yet established completely, just because of the reason that the data that is generated by the local census are not yet validated with any other monitoring technique. So that is something which is lacking in our country. So you need to come up with a good publication or something which clearly says that the local census are as equally comparable with other conventional monitoring techniques. So that will be of good help. But so currently such publications are not that much available to the public. That is one of the reasons. The second reason is for such kind of studies like source apportionment studies and other studies, this won't help us in getting the continuous edge. So there is, because for source apportionment, we need to collect samples on a filter paper, which is not possible for low-cost sensor. So that is the reason it is not established that much. But for just to know the air quality or representative samples from different parts of the city, continuous air quality, the low-cost sensors are a good option, but we need to validate the data with other conventional monitoring techniques, which is lacking in our country.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Suresh. And the next question that we have is, what are the methods that can be adopted at individual level to control air pollution at semi-urban areas, which are also facing same kind of problem? So methods for individual intervention. Dr. Ajay, Mr. Suresh, anyone? This is open to all panelists.
I think there are a lot of things which we can do at the individual level. First, don't waste electricity, because electricity is coming from the thermal power plant, and thermal power plant is responsible for the air pollution. Don't burn waste, because if you are generating waste, don't burn waste, and don't dispose it on the ground. I think in the illegal places, dispose into the proper places and segregate the waste. And try to avoid cooking by biomass fuel, like a cow dung or firewood, because sometimes we do have a gas LPG cylinder in our household, but we tend to just use biomass for our water heating and other purpose. Try to avoid this. This is a very harmful for us. So, and if possible, try to use public transport, not during COVID days, but in normal days. So these are some common practices which we can adopt, and try to teach your kids that air pollution, environment is very precious. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ajay.
That's the point I also wanted to convince. Awareness is the key. So that is actually required very much for such kind of in mitigation measures. So awareness should be in place.
So one of the participants wants to ask if there is a training institute to learn air quality modeling. Can anyone suggest that?
I don't know anything about the training institute, but in TERI, we every year conduct this training program for the officials of the state and central pollution control board across the country on different environmental aspect, and the source apportionment study and air quality modeling is one such a topic that we are covering normally every year. So they can participate in that particular program. So that can be, if you can get in touch with, that is absolutely free. Of course, you can come, and only if it is happening somewhere far place, they can look at their accommodation only. Otherwise, we have our own training program which we are conducting every year on air quality modeling.
All right. So there is one more question. That's the last question I'll take, because we are already overshooting time. So the last question and the rest of the questions we will be happy to answer. Please write to us. There are email IDs already available. And the last question in the list is, what are the pollution PM 2.5 and PM 10 reduction methods other than switching to quality fuel? What are the successes of these methods in reducing pollutants? As Surat presentation by Mr. Suresh, also of Delhi NCT, shows, outside city pollutants are major sources. So anyone, Mr. Suresh, Ajay, Unnat, anybody, Mr. Parag, this is open for all the panel, the entire panel.
So we have in our Surat report come up with a list of interventions, which we already put it in the report. Maybe once we publish the report, that will be available to the public. Maybe by end of this month or early next month, you can get a detailed report considering all the intervention analysis and its effectiveness of this impact. So that can be, you can get it from that report. So I'm happy to share that report once it is released, so you can get all your answers from that particular report. So we have put all the intervention analysis, what is the impact of each of these interventions on the ambient air quality, everything is clearly mentioned. How much percentage is the reduction capacity of each of this intervention, everything is already mentioned in that Surat report. So you have to just wait for a few more days to get to know all those interventions that is for Surat, which you have set for the Source Apportionment Study report. Yeah.
And
Thank you,
another
Yes.
another aspect, like Mr. Suresh has mentioned, is airshed approach. And you know that because a lot of the air pollution is coming out from the transboundary. So that's what he mentioned, the airshed approach. So because this is I think that air pollution doesn't understand the administrative and management boundaries. So that's जो हम लोग study कर रहे हैं, this is for our understanding because we have defined some administrative boundaries. But air pollution, so that's what airshed approach is very important. When we are saying a mitigation strategy in a particular city, it doesn't mean that is only for the city, because we are conducting the study for that city because of the some limitation and administrative and management thing. But those kind of implementation for the entire airshed or entire country. So when we all can work on those interventions, then there would be a solution to reduce the air pollution. Otherwise, if we are reducing in NCT Delhi, not in NCR, there would be very less changes. So yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ajay. Mr. Dave, any parting inputs to all the participants, because this is something that is really important for cities today and would help the participants also to move forward with the learning that they want to take up.
Just I started in my session. I am thankful to National Institute of Urban Affairs giving us the opportunity. What we are doing at the ground level in the field. This is the platform, one of the platform where we can have our own booster by presenting whatever the practices we have adopted and converted into the best practices. You know, the success stories. Though it is in a pilot scale or commercial scale right now, we can say not up to the course or applicable to all. But this is one thing. And another thing, self-discipline. One of the questions was that what is the semi-urban area we can do other than these things? So self-discipline is also a major part. We can reduce all the environmental damage in all aspects. Nothing more I would like to say. Thank you very much for inviting the Gujarat Pollution Control Board. My colleague, Mr. Ronak, thank you to you too also, WRI team, Terry, and all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So before we close the session, I'm going to request NIUA to take up a feedback round. And I'm going to request all the participants to follow the instructions that NIUA is now going to share. Over to you.
Thank you, Prerna. I have shared my screen, and I hope you can all see the screen. There's a brief. This is a brief survey we are doing for your feedback. You can log on to menti.com and use the code given on the screen, 66369940, and log into menti.com to answer a couple of questions. So the first one is on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best. How would you rate the session on the following parameters? I would request you all to please log in to this menti.com and use the code above to get the answers. We'll wait for a couple of seconds so that people can log in and add the details. while we are waiting for all of you to add the details, give your feedback, I would also like to announce that the recording will be available on Facebook on NIUS page, and it will also be uploaded soon on the website of NIU as well as WRI. But if you want it immediately for reference, it will be available on Facebook. We can go to the next question, which is what are your key takeaways from the session? You can type out your answers.
We are requesting the participants to please log into mentimeter.com and submit your responses. This will help us to better the further sessions in the series and would also help us to understand what are the what is it that really mattered in the entire conversation of air pollution to the participants. So this helps us in shaping the conversations better, and we would also request you to keep participating in our sessions which are upcoming, and we will be announcing the details for that soon.
Great. So yes, as we can see, there are a lot of details that are the key takeaways in the last of the questions. Any other suggestions to enhance the e-learning series experience? You're open to suggestions, as Prerna said, that would help us in aligning our all the series, all the events that are planned from now on. So every Thursday, this learning series will be taking place, usually at around 3 to 3:30 p.m. So we'll be sharing the details of the next one soon. Great. So we have received some feedback, which we will be happily try to incorporate in our next sessions. Thank you for logging in and giving us this valuable advice and your feedback. Over to you, Prerna. I think we can wrap up the feedback sessions.
Great. Thank you so much, Ankita, and thank you, everyone. With this, we are going to close the session for today. Please join us for the next session on Thursday, and look out for the postings that we are going to do very soon. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.